Killa Kela podcast. KillaKelaOfficial.com.
This is the sound of the Killa Kela beatbox body part sample pack. Over 120 loops, samples, and one-shots for your music production. Exclusively on Splice.
Right, in the mix right now, Killa Kela alongside the mighty Reeps One. UK world leading pioneer in mouth music. We are live and do not adjust nothing because we're going on deep. We've got some conversations which is richly deserved considering the caliber that is sitting around this table right now. He reinvented sounds that he's like the Dougie Fresh of this day and age, you know. From the click rolls of the 80s, this is the equivalent that exists right here. Listen to the man. Reeps One.
I'll absorb that good energy.
Yeah.
And man, I'm happy to be here. It's a long time coming, this conversation.
Yeah, dude. And it's a pleasure, man. How you been?
Yeah, good, man. Just, recently it's been less about shows. There's been a lot of change in kind of my responsibility as an artist and myself and who I work with, like as a team, trying to take on building shows, communicating, talking about voice, and this whole other door that opened up that maybe like 5 years ago I didn't think would have been a route. And then also anyone that thought of beatboxing, a lot of the things that are happening at the moment, you just wouldn't see coming. Like there's a thing about beatboxing and when you start talking about the wider conversation about the human voice, beatboxing actually does contribute a lot to, on a creative level, to performance and all these things you'd expect, but also like the academic world and communication, linguistics, phonetics, all these things. So it's been about a year of me kind of getting my head around that, and this year is as much about all that stuff as it is like performing and doing shows.
Because you've got deep into that. I mean, in terms of academic and Harvard and the teachings of the human voice, you've been fundamental of recent years in teaching the craft of beatboxing to a younger audience of that caliber, right?
Well, yeah, it's a strange one because like basically I became a bridge from the sort of this is a phrase, contemporary beatbox world, and obviously that sounds like sometimes that's hard for people to digest, but it's just the description of the present. So like the present beatbox world, and what that offers to the scientific community and the sort of linguistic community. And it started with because like I think anyone that's like into their thing and like has a lot of passion, and we always kind of want to stylistically grow and get sicker would be like classic old school way of saying it. You kind of break things apart and you try and understand it, and that's great for yourself. But then a point comes where you want to go slightly further, and I started speaking a lot about the way that I think about sounds and my techniques, and how I think that can be sort of a contribution to just young people, just anyone started out with just wanting to beatbox. But some of the videos of me speaking kind of got injected into the academic community, and they were like, oh, this kid's actually quite like, it's interesting what he's saying.
He's well versed.
Yeah, this is it. And then I got invited, like it was actually when the second time I won the UK Beatbox Championships, this woman came up to me and she said, like congratulations, like this is going to sound strange, but I want your brain. And I became a part of a study with UCL where they actually used my beatboxing to see what is happening in my mind on a neurological level as I beatbox, and could that be defined as an expert behavior compared to other types of expertise. So when you're speaking, and again, like what you'd never see that connection. Yeah. But beatboxing has a lot of like really exciting sort of uses for the academic world. So communicating about those things, but then also not getting too. I'm still an artist. It's still through the lens of an artist, and there's loads of interesting conversations about when you become hyper specialized, or you have something that you're super into. How communicating about that in a certain way, and looking for like a purposeful, objective worth in that. The academic world can offer a lot of those things, and it was almost. I don't know if it's luck, but it just, I could do things that they'd never seen before. You could do things that they'd never seen before. The community you've got like at least 100,000 kids out there now doing things that the linguistics community hasn't seen before. And it's still not language. It's not like directly purposeful, but on a physical level that has a lot of questions. And it's not me saying it, it's them. They're very, very interested in it.
And when you talk to them about it in terms of interest, how does that, how far do you think that resonates? Like to the pupils that are sitting there, like ingesting it, do they take enough away? Do they take what? Because like when you beatbox, and I'm speaking as a third person myself, right? Like there's a discipline within your mouth. It's a language in itself, and to try and translate that to people and actually have them take that away, that can obviously, that's one of the biggest challenges, because there's a lot of people that can just beatbox, but when you're actually applying the science to a level you or I would have, like, what do they take away from that?
See, so it's an interesting question, because like the quickest thing, sort of thing that I came up against in that world, and it's something that applies to I think everyone's art form, is there is like subjective worth and objective worth. So like I could be in front of certain people and talk about why I think my music is amazing, why I think the energy I give on stage is contributes something. But there are like objective, universal, interesting things which beatboxing sits with, something called like psychoacoustics, where like, so I'm speaking now, if my voice was higher or lower, you would perceive me as a different person. It has a massive impact and you have no control over it. So you start going into that world of abstractness, like forget language, forget the words you're saying.
Right.
The energy you give when you're speaking isn't like 10 steps away from when you beatbox. It's this abstract communication.
Yeah.
So when I was like, so I lectured
That's
to...
mad, isn't it?
Yeah, well, completely.
That is crazy.
That's interesting to everyone.
Yeah, yeah.
So when I was in front of a phonetics class at Harvard University, they
as you do.
yeah, I'm from Walthamstow. It's like, it's a definite twist in the tail. But they were not interested in the idea of like look how skillful, look at this music, look how it makes people feel in terms of through the lens of like wow, this is amazing. It was like what can it make us think about when it comes to like vocal communication that maybe we haven't sort of paid attention to. And there was this whole conversation that, so when I gave one talk, and then quite a few professors at the linguistic department it kind of went round as this like kind of kid.
The little buzz, the street buzz.
Yeah, they were like kind of, well, we want to hear this, we want to
wicked.
see it. And the way that it was said to me is that this type of communication happens in music all the time. It's like the fundamentals of musicology, the way you play something and how it feels. That's paralanguage. It's like abstract, isn't it? The notes of it and the pitch, and then people feel things.
Totally.
But when you get those rules, but then coming through the vehicle of the voice, that's a very special thing. Because people sing, people speak, but then you have this whole unique dynamic of things going on that normally like, on an evolutionary level, like it hasn't been heard before. So there's just a lot of questions of how is that affecting people? What is the social impact of that? And that's where it goes away for me. Like that they can talk about that, but it's just, that was the thing I
absorb
created.
it later.
Well, yeah, well they want to tell me things, but it was like, it's one of those examples you break through a glass ceiling where I come in and it, just by talking about what I've done and what we do in a clear communicative fashion, it always opens up a door of investigation, and that's how you know there's something there. Yeah. So for me, even though I was speaking about it before, obviously like it's not Nobel Peace Prize winning, but it's tough there. Like you can't mess about.
You can't have a gin while having a chat.
They can't know about it.
Yeah.
And you can't be ambiguous. Like there has to be a certain like level of like they said, conceptual rigor. Like you got to show that it's a formed argument and you understand the fundamentals of how you're putting something forward. And that does appeal to me. And the fact that to kind of go through that, it opened a whole new door in my mind of like, hold on, I'm someone that can bridge a gap between this very strange human act, like this thing that, because like voices are as old as we are, like as humans are.
Yeah.
It's like the...
And the idea of developing that on a level, that's pretty mad, isn't it? To think that in this day and age, you're having conversations about something that is so... It's there. Do you think that when you get like an outsider's perspective, like take for instance, some of the students that you may have spoken in front of. Do you think it helps garner new ideas by them taking away just a few of those, some of the commentary that you give? Do you think that them taking it away and processing it, and does that create the think tank that then throws it back at the scene?
Well, yeah, because you end up with, well, it's kind of happening. Like you have, the more you make those types of minds question it and want to engage, you're right. The more they do throw back, and it's kind of a ripple effect. This is probably the craziest, strangest thing that's kind of popped up so far. So like from me working with Sophie Scott, who's like, she's an incredible like science communicator, neurologist at UCL. She's the one that like kind of scanned my brain, and I've done a few different things with her. I did the BBC Christmas lectures with her on Christmas just gone. She got in touch saying that there's a Belgian geneticist who has found a gene responsible for bad articulation. So there's a gene that basically leads to you not having strong perception of your vocal area. So people that kind of mumble or have certain like lack of control, or even with the sort of syntax, the way they form their words and stuff, apparently proven gene responsible. So now the guy wants to go the other way.
Wow.
And he wants to see if there's a gene responsible for hyperarticulation. So being hyper aware and being able to sort of control your voice in a way that is way above average. So they've come to me and they've said, can you find 200 beatboxers that you think you curate, that you think are exceptional, and we want to look at their genes? Because the great thing about beatboxing is that it's something you would choose to do. It's a new thing.
Yeah, gotcha.
So again, this is like what the hell?
Yeah.
But these things keep coming back, and the reason it's good for the scene is it gives, in my opinion, it gives like this type of art form an objective purposefulness. It gives something that can contribute, like contributing to science and thought, I think is such an amazing thing. And you can have someone's granddad, grandma, brother, sister, uncle, any age. That gives it sort of a note that maybe wasn't there. Like, so there's loads of kids out there, I'm sure. And like, I'm sure we all get it. It's like, oh, beatboxing, what? Like, why? What is it?
Absolutely.
And it's just, it's these sort of things I think are really interesting because they lead to a type of thought and purposefulness of exploring this, which is just great for the scene to be able to talk about and to say that this person's done that, look at this.
Yeah.
It's just, it's a backing. And whether it actually contributes to like the style of the scene, that's like another question. It's like a whole other conversation. But that's like, I just think it's very exciting when anyone in anything is trying to break through the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to not preach to the converted. Do you know what I mean? Like, who's the hardest person to get on side and talk to them? And that's kind of what I'm a bit obsessed with. I like people. I
like that.
That's like my mantra.
What you're doing, essentially, which I think above everything I admire, is you're pushing the way for a better scene that you may not be part of. It may be further down the road. You're asking them questions that will turn into fun later down the line and just a given. It's like, well, of course, of course we do it like this because that's what, it's like, Razel, if your mother only knew, it's like, of course, you should be able to do that. It's like 20 years on, but it's so flippant the way people think things. And I think with something that's like the human voice, it's often forgot how these things do come to fruition, No,
completely. It's a funny one that you can't let other people sort of govern your vision, but you also have to appreciate that like there's always opportunities to be a part of this massive community, and it's growing. Like, man,
it's growing like crazy. Like you've got some like, and I know they're going to be here watching. It's really him, right? You've got some like young fanatics, like the level of like attendees on your Instagram is madness. Like, and does that ever like? Of course, there's like a burden of responsibility there, but a lot of these guys that are on your page, it ain't like they found you on Unilad because you did something.
Yeah.
These are people that are as equally obsessed with the scientific edge and the creative craft.
Yeah.
That's like that's like an army. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I realized a long time ago that I think one of the worst things for your career is to like be on Unilad or something like this, because it gets your numbers up, definitely, but like it's like easy come, easy go, and it's really, really dangerous. And for like anyone, the people that support me, and because I've been like, if anyone listening like doesn't know like what I've done before, like even just from the first like 10 minutes, I've been like a sort of if they think I'm gonna go one way, I go the other. Like it wasn't so long ago that I kind of followed my path and sort of accepted that some people will drop off along the way, and the ones that come on will believe in it. And I think it's been a long time of trying to be respectful to the people that show attention, still be myself. And some people have been like following me for like 7-8 years now.
I'm one of them. I remember when I was judging at one beatbox championships.
It was 2008, which was when I lost to Zaini in the semis.
Yeah, and I think Beardy Man was no.
It was you, Shlomo, Beardy Man, I think.
Yeah, and I just remember like you lost, but like. Everyone was just like, they just didn't hear what you did. And I was just like, this fucking kid is fucking, like, but you was a kid, you were so young.
Yeah.
And I was like, geezer, this guy. And I remember as you walked past, I grabbed you by the hand, I was like, that was it. Like,
no, of course I remember that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was this is just me like harping on now. But yeah, the routes you're going, it's like, it's not been crossed before. And you can't foresee that, that's...
But the weird thing is like these other things, like it's not just beatboxing, it's for across all fields. It's not happened before in that way, and that's the sort of thing I'm hungry for. But it definitely, like, there's a lot of other things I could talk about, but all that stuff is like for some people, it's a bit like why don't you just do more shows, man?
Yeah.
Just why
chill out, man?
Yeah, why are you doing all this like weird,
Calm down, dude.
like academic? Like you come from you go up in a council estate in Walthamstow. Who do you think you are?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like one thing. But it's you mentioned earlier. So like, there's fans, there's your peers, there's like managers and people and all these people. It is confusing. Like if we kind of, I like talking like pretending that no one has any idea about beatboxing. But most people, they think like YouTube, they think like novelty, they think of like a little showcase here and there, like these like little clips. And when you kind of, when you break through that glass ceiling, you get a lot of positive reaction. People are like, wow, I've never seen it like that, or God, so you get all that sort of level of things. And I think that's quite healthy. That's like people's minds are opened.
Yeah.
But then there's that extra stage of like people, you break through someone's glass ceiling and then they start going, oh, you should do it like this, or there's this opportunity and is that, and da 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 da.
All of a sudden they have an epiphany.
Yeah, and it's like, and then you don't, all you've ever thought about is like trying to rock shows and get better at what you do.
Yeah.
And that's a hard thing to not be like led in like directions, and like I don't think anyone's quite, specifically with beatboxing, everyone's had challenges with that. Like, what is its place, and like what are people's attitudes
that's right.
to that?
Very true. It's like one of the main challenges. I think as a commodity, it's live first and foremost, isn't it? And that's trying to create that translation. I always describe it as like when you put beatboxing on record, it's like putting a one-man band on a record. It's like you kind of lose the essence off the jump. Yeah. So explain to me your theory on that. Like, how do you translate? It's the age-old question. It's like actually probably the biggest question.
Yeah.
And even in this modern age, like, of the Major Lasers and the Timbalands and the, and the likes that are using vocals as flutes and vocals as, because in a percussive sense, how do you translate beatboxing on record?
Mate, like, I still think it's still an unsolved like no one's come out and gone like this is like the way, and there'll be people in 20 years like this is the piece of gear you buy and like oh, that's it, that's the technique. The main problem is I don't want to get too bogged down in like sort of beatbox geekery, but this is like fully the time to do it.
This is totally the time to do it.
But the main challenge is like, so there's a microphone in front of my face right now. All microphones are designed for they tend to be designed for a single purpose. And I don't mean they can only handle like certain things. It's just a case of you end up mixing something. So if I'm singing through this, you can like chop some tops, chop some bottoms, and then you do a mix and it's singing and it stays in that parameters. But if you put that parameter and I'm singing, all of a sudden there's like, like it's like, oh wait, no, hold on. Oh wait, something else. And I know, so musical in terms of just linear straight up, like nothing else happening, you've got musical dynamics that kind of clash with each other. So where you normally have like an isolation, you can mix the kick drum and the snare and the hi-hat and you put it where it places, and like how wide is it, and all these dynamics. You lose all the dynamics. So then you have to start thinking, well, okay, so then it's a raw clip, and that's why videos make a lot of sense, because you can have but below standard audio compared to like a fully produced like live session or track. But then people are thinking, oh, but it's just with his voice. Oh, it's just with his voice. It's almost like this kind of, it always has like a crutch, and that's why it's
totally,
cool. Or it's like, there's, so that
the magic trick.
The magic trick
versus
moment,
that I get you.
is it's a mad.
That's always driven you mad, though, hasn't it? That's just
it's the thing is, like, people get it twisted, because that is awesome, because that's the magic. People are like, oh my god, wow, like that is the kind of the DNA of beatboxing. Like a lot of people, that's like where you get into it in some sense, like that when you see people react and they're like, oh wow, it's an intimate thing,
like whoa,
like that crazy thing. But when you kind of get past that, it starts to govern. It goes a lot deeper. So then you start like wanting the party, like the reveal moments, and you start like, it starts off just like with your friends and wanting to impress your friends.
Yeah.
But then it becomes like on stage. Then you're still pulling the rabbit out of the hat. You're pulling the rabbit.
And after a while, the rabbit's just like worn out.
Well, that's it. A trick is a trick. There's a very different dynamic between something that is progressive and trusting of itself, and something that needs to go, now look, I'm changing, go. All this thing. And that's
such an interesting analogy.
Yeah, fully, man. And so the way that I started thinking about that was because I was lucky that my style has always been quite like heavily electronic, and because I started doing such long shows. So that was one of the main reasons that the challenges I came up against. I was like, no. I played, his name's Josh. I met him at Glastonbury, and just you meet people walking around, and he's just like kind of like best friend, like mate for like a few hours. Yeah, that's it. And then so we just had this meeting, and it turns out he's like one of the head guys for Hospital Records. And I think it might have been a year or something later, I got an email, and he was like, Reeps, like I met you at Glastonbury. We're doing the Brixton O2 like show. Like I want to book you for room 2. I want to give you an opportunity. And I came, I was like, oh, like business, like young business mind, like trying to sort of chat to people. And I was like, it'd be this much. And he was like, I'm not paying you that for half an hour. It was half an hour I was doing, which is still like, can be more in terms of the beatbox sphere. It's still a lot. He's like, no. He's like, until you do an hour show, like there's no way. And that always really stayed with me. So then I was like, oh, can I do an hour? And like, why can't I do an hour? What gets in the way? And realizing when I feel good in a show, when the sound's good, I can, like 45 minutes. And I was like, what's happening there? And so that's when my team grew, people like Lyndon, who's like my best friend, who's now a fucking insane producer.
He's out the traps, man. He's like...
No, we were like yin and yang, like he's fully Reeps too. Like,
that's your boy.
That's that thing. There's all that type of stuff. But then that was like those sort of challenges that you have to overcome. And that was the main thing to get out of this party trick moment.
Yeah.
Because if I'm doing a 20-minute show, you can be like pow, 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 bang, 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 like drop, moment. No. But then dynamically, doesn't matter how sick you are, if you're not bringing people on a journey,
linear. It
becomes linear, and you can feel it. People start like, they can feel, oh, I've had this. In my mind, this was just like a sort of an addition to my night. It wasn't why I'm here.
Yeah.
So like, you can feel it,
So
the
true.
switching off, that thing. And I'm so sensitive to that. And it's like, how can you keep people in? So I had about a year period where I was just like 1 hour. I want to get to that 1 hour where I finish. And there's that, like, I remember saying to Lyndon, I was like, I know I've smashed a show is when you go to say thank you and the crowd won't let you because they're still cheering.
Yeah, they're on it. Yeah, they're on you.
So like there were, like, don't get me wrong, there was a learning curve. Like there were some shows like where I felt I got to like that 45-minute mark, and then maybe the sound wasn't quite right and I was overextending, because people forget, like, you're doing a DJ set with your face.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I swear in this? I don't know. Is that,
Yeah. We just put a beatbox sound.
Yeah. It's a very physical thing, but no one cares about that, and they shouldn't. It's not important. Like it's not. I'm so not interested in that that crutch. So then I get to 45 minutes, and like you get like a. It's just like people were like, yeah, and I was like, oh, it's not quite right.
God damn it!
And then I played a show at Razzmatazz in Barcelona, which is like it's like the Fabric in Barca, and it's like 3,000 people, and it was like I was there with like DJ Yoda was on after me, and there was like after that was quite like a sort of open-minded, minimal, like more of techno crowd, which was a strange billing, but that was like great for me. So then I
that's a real watershed moment of testing your
completely
versatility.
Like, like people that were actually quite like electronically well versed, and then having to push through their preconception because everyone in that community hates beatboxing.
Of course.
They're just like, it's like the whole party trick thing, the novelty of it, and that. But I did an hour show and I finished, and DJ Yoda went to come on, and they were still like cheering.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And so for me, I was just like, that is how it should be. And that was like the beginning of that whole thing of creating a live show like that. But to bring it back to what you said earlier, still can't capture it live. Still never quite works. Like
when you're doing like, because I don't want to lose this conversation. When you're doing that show and you're bolting on extra bits to make up the hour, how much of that is a template?
Yeah.
To begin with, like how much of it is, because to do an hour is one thing, like, but to do an hour of a constant template that you might have a basic dot to dot of no, like how much of it is
like pre-planned?
Not pre-planned, that'd be the wrong, because you can frame it. That's what it is, framed. How much of it is like framework?
Yeah, I do have a structure. Because when it started, it was like add-ons and bits, but like again, it's like you don't want to kind of do something like that and you feel like you're overextending yourself. Like it should feel right. So I wrote new compositions, new pieces, like new bits, and like I fell in love with transitions. And like doing
transitions are fucking great.
No, completely.
I fucking love them.
People don't talk about that.
No, they're the best bits.
No, fully, man. Like, and like taking, finding really interesting ways from like going through stuff, and then what are the moments in the show? Like, what are the things that like people, like really like if they're in, like what can you get them to do that they didn't know they wanted to do?
Yeah.
Like it's a little bit juvenile, but there was if it's like a kind of like more light festival vibe, if people like, everyone's into it. Like I'll do a massive build up and I'll just freeze and I'll stop. I took this from Michael Jackson, to be fair. I'll just stop and everyone's like, they were waiting for this moment, and you wait. And it's first it's a little bit awkward, but then one person starts clapping and then everyone starts going, clap, clap.
Yeah.
And you just wait and then just bring the hi-hat in on time and you build it and build it and build it and build it. And then like all those types.
That's so cool.
That,
totally.
That type of moment is like jacking into the crowd and you've got them all on side. And if you feel it fading, what can you do to bring them in and da-da-da-da. And when I've spoken to other people about that, like that's a show. Like you're writing a show. It's not.
And you can't translate that on record. That's just it. I mean, you could. I mean, there's arguments that you can. There's no reinventing the wheel on this, though. That's your commodity. The commodity is, and the vocation is, it's live. That's it.
Yeah. And the other, I've thought about this a lot. And the other thing,
I don't doubt for a second.
Yeah. So this is starting to become like beatbox therapy now, where it's like I
believe me, my friend, I've been here. I know exactly what you're going through.
Yeah. There was a point when it became having to like put that whole piece together wasn't enough. Like you had to do other things to. It's almost like I ended up having to keep raising the bar. So then I started thinking about like, well, people can see me. Do they need to know that it's beatboxing? What happens? Because what happens with the long shows is people will come in like 15 minutes in, and they won't have an introduction or anything.
They wouldn't have a clue what you're
They don't
doing.
know what's going on. They think my mic's not working because it looks like I'm on the stage.
Yeah,
and they're
yeah.
hearing all this music,
Yeah.
and they're like, what's happening? So
I love that though. That
yeah.
in itself is awesome.
So, but that made me think, and then I started like not introducing myself. If I was after a DJ, I go straight through.
How did that feel when you started doing that?
I loved it.
Yeah.
It was all because everyone keeps dancing, and everyone's like they don't know,
Okay, nice.
which is absolutely like that for me. I was like, and that's an idea that people
Yeah.
find it really hard to get their head around. Why don't you want to tell people that it's like it's beatboxing? And I do sometimes, and a lot of the times I will, and they can see me. But on the big shows where it's like a
challenge
DJ
in itself
environment,
for you.
yeah, and people slowly start to realize, and you can feel people going, wait, go.
Yeah.
Um,
While they're dancing.
yeah, well, completely.
Yeah.
And it just sets it all off in much more sort of. It doesn't stop the vibe, and everyone's. Because there's always that first 10 minutes, everyone's going, what's happening? Like, what's going on there? So yeah, this is, again, all these little things that kind of get in the way of just like making the music and like going for it. Because it's all about, does it sound good enough to dance to? Like, does it compare? And as I was starting to say about the recording thing, like, even you can mix and master, like maybe we can talk about a little bit later, like what Lyndon does with like automation and stuff. It is a physical single track.
Yeah.
It's a mushy physical thing going.
It's moving. It's a moving organism.
It's not an electronic thing.
Yeah.
It's a live instrument, and so I think the fact is, it's not so much a case of you can't capture it live. It's a case of the live is a massive part of it. It's like the electric guitar compared to the acoustic guitar, being there and hearing it.
Yeah.
It's you got to kind of take it for what it is. So it's like taking it for what it is, understanding that there are limitations with it live, but then also how do you get past those limitations, and how do you like make sure people are engaging with it in the same way they would with a full on like electronic like.
I like the
suit.
analogy of like acoustic and electric. Whenever I do music on record, I often. It's like when you're performing, it's industrious. It's all you're trying to be inhumane. You're trying to be like electronic and big. But when it comes to the record, you narrow it down, go acoustic, and make it sound actually more human. When you're in a live setting and you've got these parameters, and you're performing to somebody for that much amount of time, and you've got, like, for instance, one of your tunes, because you've got your own sounds. There's people that know your signature things. But is there ever a moment where you're like, oh, I might use a loop pedal?
Yeah, so I get asked a lot, like, oh, Reeps, why don't you use a loop pedal? And everyone thinks I'm like some hyper purist, but I'm not. I just like, for a long time, I just felt like I made higher energy music without it. Like I could compose, like I can write and do these things.
I feel that, yeah.
But it's that thing of like, okay, one loop, okay, second thing. Like it's amazing.
It's already slowing down before you've even started.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's just like not like in the like present. And that felt right for a really, really long time, and it still does. And it's still like my thing is just being like a present, just creature on stage that just goes in the moment and performs and doesn't rely on any sort of tools. But like recently I have started like composing and writing other forms of music and doing collaborations, and I released a fully produced all vocal track which was part of another project I did, which I won't go into, but that was like for me it was a big moment, because I was like, okay, this is the beginning of me composing using my voice. And the thing, if you listen to it, it doesn't sound like looping. there's like a compositional process that looping provides, and that you can hear it mostly in a lot of the all vocal tracks. So I feel like, and this kind of sums me up in a lot of ways, that I'm just like the two ends of the spectrum. So I'm like purely live, fully going in, and then sitting in a studio and composing.
Yeah.
The bit in the middle, I'm not so like interested in.
I get you.
But this is maybe a little bit subjective, but I've just got a Ableton Push 2, and I've been like writing like sort of compositions and chords, and a lot of the trips I've been making around the world recently for some other projects. I've been recording people's voices and doing stuff, and like being able to trigger a chord progression, like that's something that I'm like, oh,
yeah,
actually that's
strong.
pretty sick.
Yeah.
So I did one show last year where I did that, and I've got some of these full compositions, and to be able to do this like virtuosic crazy piece, and you do this whole sort of breakdown, and then and you hit play, and this like really beautiful chord plays. It's like, ooh,
euphoric moment.
No, fully. It just it's the natural progression, because like there's so many levels. I'm not Britney Spears or anything, like, which is for some reason what I always say, but I have been doing it for a while now, in terms of like the live show, and I played a lot of stages and performed a lot. And Lyndon, who's a guy I mentioned, like my best friend, one day said to me, he's like Reeps, you've proven you can beatbox, like you're allowed to kind of like bring in some extra bits, like what's the next thing. And that really did like impact me. But that's kind of a summary of some of the challenges and thoughts of trying to make sense of the live show. And I've only just, after all that time, started to get into this idea of actually like producing a piece that's not hinged to the whole.
Yeah.
Like it's still beatboxing and it's still my voice, but I don't need people to know that.
Yeah, I get you.
Like,
I get you.
That's when that sometimes
novelty's
it's hard
gone,
to understand.
hasn't it? That novelty's gone.
Yeah, it has a place, but it's just not just about that. It's just that pursuit of more, and like that's what you did, like fully.
The pressure, complete the beatbox test up. Psychosopranic, panic scene. Beat the pressure, complete the beatbox test up. Exhale, exhale. Exhale, exhale. Play, vibe, game. Exhale, exhale.
With the Kela stuff, at least it was like, okay, how do we break the box? How do we break the mold? How do we do so? And with what you've created up to this point, whether it be live, whether it be in schools, whether it be on Instagram, on social media, there just feels like you've taken the mantle of like almost like being a spokesperson of a scene. I don't think you were looking for it, but I think it just happened that way. And then the next thing, it's like, well, it's on yours now, mate. You go and do it.
Yeah.
Doesn't it feel that way?
Well, no, yeah. I agree. But not in like a sense of I think that is, it's a weird one. It's not like that was my intention in any ways. I guess it's like how you said. Also, I don't have it in my head that it gives me some kind of I never presume some authority over other people.
Yeah.
It's like I just always think everything I do should just speak for itself. Like it's about like making. I speak about the things I want to speak about. I do the projects I want to do. I do them for Harry, for Reeps, and then I do my best to think like after these things have happened, what can it contribute? Who can it contribute to? If someone's having like a heated conversation about something, like I'm always like either people will ask me or like I'll give my opinion, and that's I think it's just an experience thing. Like it's a case of like now I'm at that point where like I have a certain amount of experience, and there's me doing these things for myself and just wanting to be the best me I can be, but then also actually caring about, can I help others if they have questions? I get messages all the time.
I bet, yeah.
Like really, really intense, personal, questions
What,
about
in terms of technicality, like how to do certain things?
everything, man. Like from technicality to like I live in Indonesia and I want to move to London and become a beatboxer. Like, should I do it? Like, it's like serious stuff. I've had messages from people that have been like on the edge of like the most intense, like pages and pages of streams of consciousness about how like watching videos has made them feel a certain way. But that's not just me. It's a strange beatbox thing. Like, people find solace in it. It's a very like, it's something that people get extremely passionate about, but then find it very hard to talk to people about. So like the only reason I mention that is that in response to that thing you said of like, it's not that I asked for it, but because of me kind of being quite outspoken about wanting to understand more and like get it, that does have this effect where people just ask questions. Like, I'll get questions asked all the time of like, is this it? And da da da. And sometimes it's like, it's difficult because like, man, like we're all just trying to find our way. I don't assume some authority. Like, I appreciate like conceptual rigor, like trying to get it, trying to understand and hold on to something.
Conceptual rigor.
Yeah, but that's something that's been said to me. It's something I didn't have a phrase for it for a long time, but it's like really putting everything you have into being able to communicate something with precision and like and with a sort of a formed argumentation. Like, so you can, in the court of law, you can talk about it and there is a clear reasoning for it. It's not just it's not just an idea that you haven't quite got a grasp on, because you can feel that. That's fine. Like you in music, when you're on stage, you feel it. You don't have to pull it apart.
Yeah.
But when you start dealing with other people, it helps to have conceptual rigor, because then you know how to communicate about certain things that are quite hard to talk about or hard to understand, and that informs you and it informs other people. And that, in a nutshell, I think is my place in the community. Is like I'm like a astronaut of trying to like better myself, trying to kind of overcome the challenges. And it's just happened that some of the things I'm doing can inform other people.
What challenges do you think you suffer? For the people that you talk to online that are challenged, what are the immediate things that you're challenged with?
I had a massive chip on my shoulder for a long time, because like I grew up, like everyone says this, but like I was a happy kid. Like my dad was there for me every day, and my mum did everything she could, but we didn't have anything. Like, when people say that, but we didn't have like no savings, mum, dad didn't drive. Like I didn't, all I had was my friends and like the things I did, like from a young age, like everything I did. And I always sometimes wonder if it was like some form of escape, or like trying to find purpose, like way day dot, like from when my dad left because he had to go to work and I wanted to stay, I'd do things to kind of occupy myself.
Because you and your dad play chess, like you're massive chess heads.
Yeah, my dad is like I adore my mum and my sister, but if my dad was here, he's like me, but in 50 years. He's an old boy. He's like, the thing is, he's 80 now. So and
an intellectual.
Yeah, he's like he's a thinker. He has one of these like energies that like people are quite drawn to him, and he's a chess playing, piano playing, insane photorealist, like painter, like really beautiful. Like,
so you haven't
artwork.
got many roots in the arts or any intellectual properties at all. No, like, do you know what I mean? Like,
the weird thing is though, is that my dad is completely self-taught, and like
that's mad.
Yeah. He has this thing where when he sets his mind on something, he creates his own like systems, and he's still doing it. Oh, that might be me. Is that me? Oh, that is me. Sorry.
That's what I know.
My mum. That's so funny.
Put on a loudspeaker. Say I'm
No, she can.
I'm playing.
I'm gonna turn this off. But man, yeah, this is getting deep. Like, but he kind of creates his own systems, and that was his main gift to me. Is like, if you find something, like, I felt like if he was on a desert island, he'd still do all the things he does. He wouldn't need anyone to tell him how to do it. Like,
very much like us, my friend.
Well, that's it. Complete. I feel like banging. But that's exactly it. Because like with beatboxing, it requires a certain type of skill to innovate.
I was only talking about this earlier today. Like a friend of mine that I was with, like we were talking about people that utilize Instagram for the commercial gains, just to take photos of themselves. And I'm like, hold on, if you switch off the internet tomorrow, what are you going to make money with? Like you've got to have something, right?
No, completely. But this is why you're a freak, because like, man, like the way you were just this like complete anomaly, like you were an actual like complete break off from anything that came before. And I don't know what was going on, but you're obviously like a product of your environment. And all the sounds you were doing, and just like the style of music and the textures, like every single part of it, it wasn't like, well, maybe, I don't know, like maybe you could tell me about some like old school beatbox friends you had like back in the day, which might be an interest. There must have been that mate or someone. But yeah, every single aspect of what you did was yours. Like it wasn't like, oh, there's a bit of this and a bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like Killa. And that's that skill. It's like only certain people do that, and it happens across all kinds of different disciplines where you get this. You can call it like a mutation, where someone just becomes this like other thing. It's not easy to find that all the time. And they're the people that everyone remembers, are the ones that like they're the ones that people say, oh, he contributed, or the legends.
Contribute is the right term, I think, and you've done it too. And this is why this is such a fanboy moment for me, because like as somebody that loves and respects the art, I went through very similar things as you're going through and have done. And when you're talking about contribution, I believe I have, you add a little piece to a bigger organism, and the contribution is a definitive something. Like the amount of sounds, and I know I did it, but this is about you, and the fact that you've contributed so many sounds to the bigger piece of the pie. In the long run, it's just a given sound. But the truth is, the buck stops there. Like, how do you, in your head, how do you process that?
I don't think about it.
Because you want the next sound?
No, it's like, the thing is like, there was a point when, like, well, no, it's like, when you say like, do you mean like the idea of like how just all the things you said about
the vocal wobble, for instance, the thing that was not happening, and I saw it there, at the beatbox championships. Whenever you said, I can't remember when it was, but I saw that and I was like, that is a sound that's a sound that's not been replicated in instruments, and it was way early doors before dubstep like that. Like dubstep was doing it, but like you had a different slant on that sound.
Well, that was, yeah. So I'm fully proud of all those things. Like and also like the thing is that sometimes, I don't know, how can I put this? It's quite a hard thing to talk about. I felt like there was
whisper in my ear and I'll tell you so that you don't feel like you're talking about yourself.
No, it's more. I don't know if it's like, I don't know if it's one of these things that I can't see it from the outside perspective, and I think it might be a little bit of like a coping mechanism, because I felt like there was a point that came. So like the things I know I can say is like, I think the reason I'm hesitating is because there's statistics that I think they're important to the scene and they did a thing, but they're quite toxic to hold on to. Like
Which it has, yeah, I get it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
if I'm like, I did that and I did this and da-da-da. But if we're having a conversation about, I know that in 2009, like I was fully a product of grime and dubstep, like early grime. And when dubstep was like the beginnings of it emerging before it took over the world, like, which was a weird, really strange time.
That's a weird thing in itself, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, because there was almost a bit of a contextual thing there. I was like perfectly timed, because so a lot of the sounds I was doing was informed by London music. I was literally a product of like I grew up around producers, and everyone around me, like, just it made me have this style, and that's why I say I'm presuming it must have been similar for yourself, where your sound came from, not from dubstep and grime, but just from Kella's life,
DJs and things.
Yeah,
like that.
the people around you absorbed it, which I think is when the exciting stuff happens, because you weren't thinking about the scene. It's like your products of your environment.
You can't go back on that. Like, it's the thing that you get off on. That was it.
No, completely. And then but so then I remember saying to my mate John, like DJ Captain Crunch, who's like basically my big brother, like
it's your dog.
Yeah, man. He's
gang,
he looked after me a lot. And he I remember so I was 18, 19, and like I hadn't been to I'd done one that UK champs, so I came second that year. And then I got in to go to the Worlds. Like Bilo gave me like an invite because he'd seen me and he was like, Reeps, you must come to the World Beatbox Championship, 2009.
Respect.
Yeah, maximum respect. And he sent me a message. So I was like, I'm gonna go. Like I was like, I'm just gonna go do my thing and like whatever. Just it'd be nice to like meet the international scene and whatnot. And then and then I there was this whole thing that happened because I lost in the semi-final. I ended up coming third in the world when I was 18, and I lost to Zidi, who ended up winning. But the way that I lost, I looked up to Zidi so much. It was one of those gassed moments where I was like, whoa, I'm battling Zidi, crazy. But I knew his style, so I had quite a lot of like, a lot of sort of like gusto against him. But then I lost and I was so like happy with that. But then Zidi in the final comes, he says, I shouldn't have lost to Reeps. Does this whole thing. And it created this like really interesting dynamic, which I wasn't bothered about. But when that happened, it was the first time that all of us, because I was doing dubstep, I did like Where's My Money there and like all the old school like stuff. That ended up like people who were watching and into the scene, they'd never heard dubstep before. Yeah. So through me doing Where's My Money
as a medium,
there's definitely a good like 50,000 people that had never listened to dubstep that then started listening to it because of that clip. So that's why I think I had a special connection with a lot of people. It started there because it became a musical connection, and then things like the inward drag and like the wob and like multiphonic.
The inward drag, right now we really are getting to.
I don't know whether this is appropriate. You guys
could, it's more than appropriate, right? You guys can just switch off right now, or we can re-listen to the real, okay? Right, the inward drag thing, okay? Because what happened was, I was into the breathing outwards and the ambience, like it was all about the immersion of like sound, like at any given point. What you did with the inward drag and the inward snare was like you self-contained it. It then became it silenced everything around. Do you know what I'm saying? It then became like clinically, and that to me is what is one of the key moments in beatboxing from at least 2010 onwards, where it was like, no, it's not cool to breathe. It's not cool to breathe. Like, you just stop it.
Well, that's like, so I'm going to get to that. So that's like a technical thing. But the, to bring it back to the whole idea of thinking about how you contribute to stuff. So what's mental is that now everyone in the community talks about inward drag. It's like one of those, like the etymology of it. Like people say it and like they have no idea where it comes from. But I remember being in my bedroom when I was 18 with Lyndon, and Lyndon's like he went to Berkeley. He's like an amazing musically like academic like person. So I did a certain routine, and he wrote it out in like drum notation. And he was like, you know that like that inward thing that you do, like what do you want to call it? And I was like, oh, inward drag. And he wrote it down, and it's mad how that manifests. And it's all
inward
over
drag, dude.
I see it everywhere, and people still use it. And it's one of those things that I could be thinking, oh, that's mine, but like really, I don't think about like how my sounds contributed. I don't think about do they respect me? Do they know where it comes from? I never even go there. Like every single day, I'm a brand new beatboxer, and it's what I think about.
That a boy.
But
that's my doggy.
But the main thing I think about though is like what do I care about?
Yeah.
And I care about like innovation. I care about leveling up. I care about like helping people. I care about outdoing myself, like changing people's opinions. That's always been like what I'm into. And that's like I feel like that's way more important because you see it everywhere, not just in beatboxing, like the whole mumble rap hip hop thing where people are like,
I think it's slightly generational, and it's like it's something that it's almost like bound to happen, like mumble rap with what Soulja Boy, Do you know what I mean? Lil Wayne. These things, it's almost like progression. And I get what I think that's where you're coming from.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's just that like things you can either argue about music or you can kind of.
I hate people that argue about music.
Oh yeah, it's like
It's so boring. It's like if you don't like music and you don't like where it's going, then do something about it. Like, don't just sit on the fence.
well, yeah, that's kind of it. Like you can get annoyed and you can be a part of a conversation, but like just chill out. Like chill out there, but then go out and like just
get it.
Yeah, do the best. Like, are you being as? Because I'm talking about people that get like really like you see people get, and they're just like
Those 30-something musos that are just like so pissed off that all their electronic equipment they bought just don't work anymore.
Well, completely, it's like stream of consciousness rage, and it's like I was like, do you put that much energy into your music? Like, do you actually like? Is that
true,
the
man.
thing? So I try and avoid that type of like thinking, and I put my energy into progressing in the ways that I think are important. But the thing is, some people tell me that I am too passive, that I should like fight my corner more and I should battle more and all these things. But I'm like, I can only be me. Like, I can't be anyone else.
Here's the thing, and I can only speak personally. There comes a time when you're doing what you do to such a level that you generally can't. You can't just go and submit yourself to a battle, because it becomes a commodity.
Yeah.
And what you're doing is a commodity, and it's a real contrast to what ethically you believe in. It's like it should be just a disposable thing that you just do, and you contribute to the art form. But we've got to eat. And
that's a whole other thing. Like getting paid is like battling every day is like it doesn't pay the bills.
Because like I'm put it on the table. You didn't win as much as you contributed. You're a pioneer, but yet you didn't. And this is where you actually celebrate the championism of it. Like, you didn't, but you gave more.
Well, yeah, well, that's it. I've always said, like, I'm not really a battler. Like, I was never. Like, I used to get quite, when I was younger, I got super aggressive and like really like in people's faces and stuff. But which makes it seem like, oh, I'm a battler. But it was always a bit like, oh, like, what am I doing? Like, so when I won the UK champs, I'd only beatbox for 10 minutes because it's like 2-minute rounds. And
Yeah,
it's like I was like, that's not, like, what's that? And I have absolutely no problem with like battleheads, and I think like just
because people held you. People actually do held you as like one of them, like of a glory time. You know, there's you, Skilla. There was, I mean, you fucking run and fucking listen, look them on YouTube. You know, but there was a real like crutch of like pioneering battlers, and you're up there with them from like 2009 onwards. You know. Yeah,
it's just another one of those things that I can't really think about. Because like there's.
I'm putting it to you. You got to think about them now.
Oh yeah. Well, it's hard. It's hard. I get.
Because you probably don't talk about this stuff.
Well, no,
really.
not to this detail. This is like probably the most I spoke about beatboxing in a long time.
Says you're
but
right.
yeah, no, it's it's like I said, I should be paying you. It's therapy. But it like the main thing that I got was like, so I came third in the world, and I won 2 national championships, and then I came third again. But when I went back for everyone's expectation of me, because everyone was like, Reeps is gonna win, like, because I was like the champion of the people at that time, like 100, like that's the thing that I was super proud of, and it was in my head, like it felt like I was doing it for everyone, and it was it was way before that I was like, hold on, wait a minute, like it's not actually like in my element. So what I told myself was, I was like, oh, well, you know this, and like, you know what your vision is and what you want to do. Like, you say that it's a game, it's a sport, like battling. It's like a music sport, like that's what it is.
Complete
which is something shout out to Darnie. That's like a term that he said, music sport.
Big man Darnie.
Yeah, no, legend.
Another legend, yeah.
But yeah, I have a bit of like a blank because like I had this weird things happen, man. Like I'm a pretty rational, logical person, but some weird superstitious stuff happened before I went. So I went to get on I got a car to the airport, and a truck in front of me span and like blocked the road. So I couldn't, like, I missed my flight.
Wow.
So I had this thing. And before that, like the whole like sort of time before, I was like, I don't know if I should go.
Yeah.
I was like, something doesn't feel right. I don't know what it is. Like something doesn't feel right. The other and
wow.
Actually, I'll save this till the end. But like during that time, I am not making excuses. Like this is me just trying to be honest. Like talk about things I don't talk about. But at the same time, my dad was unwell. He had like heart failure. I was like, I was going through another transition in my life. And this sort of home of beatboxing, like where it was always this thing that was like where I'd feel comfortable. All of a sudden, like it just, have you ever just had a feeling when like something doesn't feel right? Or like something like a room doesn't feel right? Like, like you go to a hotel and there's some weird vibe.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, beatboxing felt like that. And I was like, whoa, what is that?
Whoa.
I was like, I don't feel welcome.
Wow, okay.
I don't know what it is. So it was probably my frame of mind from everything that happened. So when the truck span out, the only flight I could get was like, it was about 6-7 hours afterwards. So I didn't have time to really go home. So I went on. I didn't sleep in the airport. I just like lied on the floor. Got the next flight. Everyone would always like, where's Reeps? Where's Reeps? Because they were like, I should have been there a day before. So I turned up with no sleep. And then, and the first thing I heard was Bilo, and he had all of the like the battlers all in a row, and he's like, I have one. I told you the rules, but I have one more thing to say. He's like, no dubstep apart from the dubstep master from the UK, which should have been a good thing. But then, all of a sudden, I realized I was like, my style is everywhere. Like everyone is so aware of me.
Yeah, dude.
I was like, fuck. So then I became like, also it was all like this energy and all this like stuff.
Right.
So by the time, so then it started, did my elimination, got through. So then I did my first round. I actually felt pretty good. I was like, okay, no, wait, hold on.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
this is
cooking,
like,
you're cooking.
Like forget it. So I did my elimination. Then did the first round against the Japanese champion, just like fine. And then I started to fatigue a little bit. Did my sort of my second round, got through. But by the time I was up against Killa, I'd not slept. It'd been another 12 hours.
Right, so you were lagging.
Bellatrix was like looking at me, and I was just like, oh, I don't know if like I could do this. So I had all this like these conflicting emotions, but then the reason like my block was I did go there with the ethos of like, this is not my place. Like I'm coming here to
You're kind of ambassadoring the vibe, and you're just saying sayonara. Really.
But it doesn't matter what my feelings are. Like it's one of those situations where everyone's making opinions.